Hello everyone, Farah Hanoun here, and I'm joined by Cory Sandhagen, who takes on John Lineker this Saturday at UFC Fort Lauderdale. Cory, how are you?
I'm doing really good, Par. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. So first of all, thank you so much for joining me. It's fight week, and I always appreciate when somebody can take time off. That's such a busy week. First of all, when do you head to Fort Lauderdale?
Um, I leave tomorrow morning pretty early, and then I think I get into Florida around like 2 or 3 in the afternoon.
Nice, nice. Is it Sunrise or Fort Lauderdale? I don't know. I'm getting confused a little bit. Or is that the same thing?
I'm actually really confused too. I think that Sunrise is like the actual city, but Fort Lauderdale is maybe just like the smaller city inside of Sunrise, or one of them's a county or something. I don't know. I know that they're like 30, 40 minutes north of Fort Lauderdale or Miami though.
All right, so that'll do.
Yeah, I'm yeah, I'm super confused too, but
I guess I'll use both hashtags just to keep it safe. Well, it is fight week. Tell me how you feel going into this one. Of course, you're taking on John Lineker. If we rewind back, you were supposed to fight him in Brooklyn. Of course, he was forced out. You ended up fighting Mario Batista. First of all, were you hesitant at all in taking a replacement opponent just because of the fear of losing that Lineker fight?
no, like for me, I think that going through a whole camp and then not being able to fight anyone probably sucks more than making the risk of fighting someone that I mean isn't necessarily going to do too much for you. Not that that's what Batista really was, because I needed really good. I would have liked some more experience before fighting Lineker, anyways. So no, that doesn't bother me too much. Honestly, I don't have a lot of say, or I don't allow myself have a lot of say in the fights that I take and what I don't take. I kind of leave that up to my coaches, and I kind of just leave the responsibility on myself for just going out and handling business when it's time.
And was it tough for you to go from Lineker to a newcomer? I mean, was there any thought process at all, or like you said, you just wanted to get in there and compete?
I just wanted to get in and compete. Actually, to be honest, I'm kind of glad that it wasn't Lineker for that specific fight, because that was kind of a short notice fight, and
Yeah.
I think it was maybe it was like 2 3 weeks notice that we were supposed to fight Lineker, and getting ready for me after only having really 2 UFC fights, I would have liked a little bit more time to get ready for Lineker anyways. So I wasn't actually too bummed about it. I really wanted that top 10 spot.
Mhm.
But it was cool. I was the first fight on the ESPN card. I had a really good showing, so I was cool with it.
And initially, for those who don't know, it was supposed to be Thomas Almeida, and then we went to Lineker, and then Mario Batista. You get that phenomenal performance. It is a lot of pressure to take on a newcomer as opposed to Lineker, but you had a fantastic showing. Now you get the Lineker fight. Did you expect for them to rebook the Lineker fight?
Not really. I really didn't know what they were gonna do. I'm really glad that it is Lineker, though. I think that it's pretty cool that I get to jump up a few spots, and after the last performance, I kind of get to ride a little bit of a wave of confidence going into it. Um, so I wasn't really expecting it. I didn't know that that was really on their mind, but I know that right after that fight with Batista, they were really, really asking for that Lineker fight. So um, yeah, I'm definitely very excited, but no, I wasn't really expecting that either.
Well, talk to me about the matchup. Obviously, Lineker is a name in the division. He's fought pretty much everybody. It is a big step up in competition for you. How would you break down his style?
Um, I think Lineker is kind of labeled as the brawler in the bantamweight, or at least in the top 10 of the bantamweight division. But I think he's also a lot more than that, and I think that it throws a lot of the more technical guys off. I watched a few of his more recent fights with like the Vera guy, and then the other one that he just won, whoever that was. But I've been watching that, and I kind of find that like he's doing really subtle things that he doesn't get a lot of credit for, because I think he's labeled as a brawler, but I think he is much better, and I think that people in the past when fighting him have made the mistake of going out and just thinking that it's going to be a slugfest, and if they're more technical than them, then or more technical than Lineker, then they're going to win. But I'm realizing that I don't think that that's the type of fighter Lineker is. I think he's actually a lot smarter than just going out and throwing a bunch of punches. So I'm expecting that. I'm also expecting him to throw a lot of really big punches, but more than anything, I'm prepared for him to be better than what he looks like, if that makes sense. Not that he looks bad, but I'm prepared for him to be a little bit more, a little sharper than what he gets credit for.
And you think that's a mistake that people don't, because he hasn't lost many fights in the UFC. I believe he's only lost two. Do you think that's the mistake, or three, I believe? Do you think that's the mistake people make, that they get lured into that brawl and start exchanging the pocket with him? And he's got
Yeah,
like pretty solid chin.
I've seen it. I've seen it in all of the fights that I've watched, almost where uh, people I can tell go in counting on a big shot landing because I mean with that style, one of the downfalls is that I mean you're leaving yourself very open if you're going to swing real big like that. So I do notice that like a lot of guys go out and kind of hunt for things that they've trained too much and they kind of like they change their style too much to transform into the fighter that they think is going to beat Lineker. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just fight like how I fight, and I think in those exchanges where he's going to open himself up really big, I think that I'll be able to capitalize on those really well. But I think if you hunt for things against Lineker, it makes for a long night, and he gets to impose his will.
And this card was originally on ESPN and moved to ESPN Plus. I saw your post where you were telling people, "Don't ask me how to get ESPN Plus, just Google it." So it's funny that you say that. Have a lot of people been asking you how to get ESPN Plus?
Oh my god, the amount of dumb questions that I get throughout the fight week and like the week before is just like so mind blowing to me. Like, uh, maybe not dumb questions, but maybe they're just trying to start chatter with me. But I think the amount of times I've been asked how I'm feeling in the past 2 weeks has been like absurdly large. Like probably we're talking like 80s, 90s. How you feeling, bro? How you feeling, bro? What time do you fight? What time do you leave? What time? How do I watch it? Is it ESPN, ESPN Plus? And then when I say it's ESPN Plus, I get a lot of like, oh, okay, what is that? And then I have to explain that it's the app, and I'm not complaining about it too much, but it's a question that like I'm tired of answering, so I just don't want anyone else asking me how you get ESPN Plus. It's much easier just to Google how do I get ESPN Plus, and then you can watch me on there like that.
That's very true. One of the questions I get a lot is like when people tell me, "Oh, what?" Like if I announce like the fights in fight week, they go, "What time is that in California? What time is that in Denver?" What? And I'm just like I'm not gonna sit and like because I have to Google it myself. I'm not gonna sit and Google it for you and tell you. You can Google it yourself.
Oh my god, it's crazy, right? Like, and I know that it's not their fault because they don't really understand that it's just like it's a question that gets asked once from them, but like coming from like 50 different people, it becomes a lot, you know. But I mean, you know how it is.
Of course. And I wanted to ask you the co-main event being Greg Hardy. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because obviously it's receiving a lot of criticism from the fans. But I was wondering if someone like you on the card with a big fight, if you have any thoughts on Greg Hardy being the co-main event.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not tripping over it, but I think that it's like kind of silly. The UFC does things in their own way, and I mean, I'm not a business person, so I don't really know like the numbers on like what fighters bring in what audience and like this and that. But like, I mean, from a fighter's perspective, putting someone like Greg Hardy, who I think only has like 4 or 5 MMA fights total, uh, at least as like a professional. Seems a little silly to me, but also at the same time, like the UFC can do what the UFC wants as long as I like go out, do my thing, get good opponents, get paid. Like I don't really care too much what they do. Obviously, I want a lot of exposure, but uh, I don't really trip out about it.
I see. And a couple more questions before I let you go. Where do you feel like a win over Lineker will put you? Because of course, he's a guy who's highly ranked and pretty much fought everybody in the division.
Yeah, I think it puts me in a position where it probably depends more on how I finish Lineker. If it's kind of a decision, you know, because it's kind of weird in fighting, you know, like you can watch someone and you can know their game extremely well, but when you get in the cage with someone, it's much different, and you start to notice little subtle things that they're doing, which can kind of throw you off, but also like be completely different than what you were expecting. Um, so if it's kind of a weirder fight where it goes to a decision and it's a little bit slower or whatever, which I don't foresee, but like who knows, you know? I think if that's the direction that it goes, then it's. I mean, I don't have any pull in like asking for a contender spots fight or a championship fight for sure. But I mean, if I go out and like I have a really nasty fight with Lineker and I finish him with something really cool, then I think that I'm definitely in talks for at least a fight that will put me in a position where after that one I can fight for the belt. So I think that it depends, but like I said, I'm not thinking about that too much. Like a lot of my focus is just on Lineker, but that's a really good question. You know, like I really have no idea.
And the division's interesting now with the flyweight champion Henry Cejudo challenging for the vacant title against Marlon Moraes. What are your thoughts on the flyweight champion moving up and getting that crack at the vacant title as opposed to another fellow bantamweight?
Yeah, I don't really like that fight either. Like to me, it doesn't make much sense. Like it makes more sense for me to or for the UFC maybe to build up Marlon a little bit and then have that be like a super fight and maybe sometime next year instead of Henry just jumping up right away. But we're kind of in the era of like the double belts, so like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the champions seem to be calling the shots in the UFC now, and that's kind of what Henry wanted. I don't think Marlon's minding; he's getting his title shot too. Uh, so I don't really like the fight, but like I said, the UFC does what the UFC does, and I'm at my point in the career where I'm not too concerned with what they're doing. I'm trying to gain experience, make some paychecks, push my name a little bit, and just keep putting on really good performances. And that's kind of where I'm at with stuff. So all the stuff they're doing, I don't care too much, but I don't really like that fight, Cejudo and Marlon.
I see. And were you surprised with the whole TJ Dillashaw situation? I know he's a former training partner of yours and a friend, I believe. Were you surprised with the whole situation?
Uh, su- Surprised, I guess maybe not like crazy surprised. That's not taking away anything from like what type of person I think TJ is. Like TJ was always really cool with me. We were like gym buddies, you know, like we never like hung out outside of the gym or anything like that. But we were training partners, and he was always a good guy to me. So it's not like I'm like blown away that he was doing that. I'm a little blown away that it was something that serious as EPO. Like that's like a really serious drug that like is blatantly cheating. But for TJ, I don't really want to kick like a dead horse.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's probably feeling a lot of shame and
Yeah.
a lot of guilt for that. So surprised, I suppose, not too much, but I mean, he knows that he's gonna get what he deserves. You know, like he cheated, so he has to kind of man up to it now, which he did. So he'll pay his sentence or however it works, and then that'll be it.
Fair enough. And this is like we're in April. You fought in January. This is great pacing, I suppose, for you, right? Before that half of the year, you already will have had two fights. Are you liking the way things are going? Of course. And would you? How many more fights would you like to get in the year?
Yeah, as many as I can. You know, like I think the window for this sport is very small. I think that some guys are riding it out a little bit longer, but as the sport's progressing, guys are getting much more fights, much quicker. So I don't really want to be one of those guys that's 35, 36, 37 that needs to be worried about like putting food on the table and taking fights that way. Like I want to get as many as I can in while I'm younger, and then retire earlier than later. But right now, I'm just on like, yeah, if I'm healthy and I can lose the weight in time, then sign me up for the fight. And I want to do as much as I can as quick as I can because I know that. I mean, I just turned 27 last weekend, so. Not that it's like creeping up on me, but I don't want to be one of those older fighters. I want to get all of my fights in as while I'm young and while I'm still healthy.
Oh, well, happy belated, first of all. And activity is everything, right? We saw a guy like Israel Adesanya go from like debut to interim champion just because he's been active. And I feel like you taking that short notice replacement fight in Mario Batista, where many people in that situation probably would have pulled out of the card in hopes to rebook that Lineker fight, it's kind of paid off for you in a nice way, because here you are getting that Lineker fight. You're getting a second fight before half of the year. And obviously, activity, we're seeing that common pattern in the UFC where the more active you are, just the faster you'll climb the ranks, as opposed to somebody who sits back. If I could use another example in my head, it's like when Kamaru Usman got the title shot as opposed to Colby, because he kind of got punished for sitting out. Well, not really sitting out. He had surgery to do. But you see where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah, definitely. I noticed that too, and with so many fighters in the UFC, you kind of have to I mean, you have to stand out in somehow, and especially with the way that the UFC promotes their fighters, it's a little bit too much if you have 12 fights on a card to promote all 24 of those guys. But if people are seeing you pop up, uh, every couple months, like, oh, okay, yeah, I watched him not too long ago. It's very easy to get forgotten in like such a big pool of fish, So I mean, you have to be the fish that's kind of like swimming around and being a little bit more active than the other guys. So yeah, I definitely agree with you 100%. Where like that's what it needs to be. Like if especially as a new guy, and I've kind of listened to interviews too from like some of the guys that have been in the game for a while, and they're like, man, like get in as many fights as you can while you're young. So I think that's definitely very true.
One last thing before I let you go. Do you envision how this fight with Lineker goes down? Do you have a prediction?
I don't really know, to be honest, because like I said, like when I watch people hunt for things in his fights, I notice that he is a little bit harder to hit than normal. So I don't really know how long it's going to take me to figure out his timing and where his openings are exactly. But I do know that all of the stuff that me and my coaches have been working with each other are like very nasty. So especially him being much shorter, like the techniques that we're throwing, and just the way that he leaves himself so open. Um, I think that my reflexes and my speed are going to be enough to catch him with some really hard things. It's just going to be a matter of like if he'll go down, because that dude has a chin that's very tough. So I don't really know, like I kind of go out and I let the fight be the way that the fight is. I just put a lot of pressure on people. I poke at them, and I start to have them make mistakes, and then when I can pinpoint a mistake that he's going to make, and I can capitalize on it, it's kind of just going to depend how good his chin really is, which I think it is going to be really good. So I'm anticipating it's probably going to be on the longer side of the fights, maybe a decision, but also at the same time, like what we're working is very nasty, and they're very damaging shots. So I don't really know, but I'm really excited for it.
Oh, it's got fight of the night written all over it. All right, guys, you can catch Cory Sandhagen this Saturday when he takes on John Lineker on the main card live on ESPN Plus. Don't ask him how to get ESPN Plus. Just Google it. Cory, thank you so much for your time and best of luck.
Heck yeah, Farah. Thank you so much.